You keep praying, God, use me. But heaven feels silent. Not because God isn't listening, but because you're stuck in a test you haven't passed yet. This isn't new. God has always tested the people he planned to use. Joseph wasn't promoted before he was tested. Moses wasn't sent before he was broken. David wasn't crowned before he was restrained. And Jesus didn't begin his ministry until he rejected temptation in the wilderness. God's pattern is clear. Calling always follows testing. And there are 3 temptations that decide whether a man ever steps into his purpose. Most men fail them. That's why most men live ordinary lives while praying for extraordinary impact. Which one are you failing? Test 1. Comfort or calling. This is the quiet killer of destiny. You know God has been nudging you toward something more. You feel it when you're alone. You sense it in your spirit. But it feels inconvenient, uncomfortable, risky. So you delay. Later. When things are easier. When I'm more ready. That sounds responsible, but it's not. It's fear wearing the mask of wisdom. Moses felt God's call at 40. He tried to act in his own strength, failed, and ran. And God made him wait another 40 years in the wilderness. Why? Because comfort had to die before deliverance could be born. By the time God spoke from the burning bush, Moses had a quiet life, steady routine, and no ambition left. And even then, he resisted. But the moment Moses left comfort behind, miracles followed. Be honest. You've built a safe life. Predictable. Secure. But God keeps whispering, there's more. Every year you choose comfort, that calling grows quieter. Not because God stops speaking, but because your heart stops listening. God moves when you stop protecting comfort and start obeying faith. So ask yourself, what comfort is God asking you to surrender? Test 2. People's approval or God's approval. This test destroys more destinies than failure ever could. You care deeply about what others think. Your family, your friends, your church, your reputation. Not bad people, concerned people, well-meaning people. But human wisdom can suffocate divine purpose. David had the perfect opportunity to end Saul's life. Everyone around him expected it, encouraged it, approved it. But David refused, because pleasing God mattered more than pleasing the crowd. That single decision protected his future. You already know what God has asked of you, but fear keeps you frozen. What will they say? What if I look foolish? What if I fail publicly? So you shrink. You play safe. And slowly, your spiritual life dries up. You cannot serve God fully while managing opinions constantly. Freedom comes the moment you decide whose voice matters most. So ask yourself, whose approval is controlling your obedience? Test 3. Control or surrender. This is the test men struggle with the longest. You want God's blessing, but on your terms, your timing, your strategy. When God says, wait, you rush. When God says, trust, you panic. When God says, let go, you tighten your grip. Joseph had the chance to secure his future through compromise, influence, position, control. He refused. That refusal sent him to prison, but it also preserved God's plan. Every time you try to force doors open, you're not acting in faith. You're acting in fear. And fear-built success never lasts. You're exhausted because you've been carrying what God never asked you to control. When you finally surrender the timeline, the plan, and the pressure, God steps in with power you can't produce. So ask yourself, what are you still trying to control instead of trusting God with? Here's the truth. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. But preparation requires honesty. Name the temptation you keep choosing. Say it plainly. I'm choosing comfort. I'm living for approval. I'm refusing to surrender control. Then do something real. One step. One act of obedience. One decision that costs you something. Because faith without action is just talk. God's calling is real. But He will not release it until the test is passed. The question is simple. Will you keep choosing comfort, approval, and control, and stay stuck? Or will you finally say no, and step into what God designed you for? The test isn't coming someday. It's happening now.